Welcome to Childcare Conversations, the podcast where early childhood leaders like you get real-world strategies, honest talk, and a whole lot of support. Whether you're running one center or many, we're here to help you lead with confidence and clarity. This episode is brought to you by Center IQ. If you've ever added a child to a classroom, adjusted staffing, or made a quick schedule change, and then spent the next 2 weeks fixing the ripple effects, you're not alone. Most leaders make decisions and then see what happens. Center IQ's decision intelligence lets you see what happens before you decide. Start your free trial today at centeriq.io. Now, let's get into today's conversation, one we think you're really going to love.
Hey, everybody, it is Sunday Night Live with Kate and Carrie. Wait a minute.
Yep. And so we have some thoughts about this, and we hope that you do too, because this is one of those ones where I'd kind of like it to be a conversation. So if you are listening in real time or if you are watching the recording, please use the comments on this one, because I want to know if Kate and I are thinking the same way you guys are. We have been going to a few conferences over the last, 2 years, actually over the last 30 some odd years, but the last 2 years have been a lot of conferences, and some conferences have one keynote and some conferences seem like half of the conference is keynotes. They're calling everything a keynote. We went to a conference with 4 keynotes and it was a 2.5 day event. And we've gone to others where they have 2 keynotes and it's a 2-day. And
Okay, wait. Let's just jump straight into the conversation. What is your thoughts on, Carrie? What's the goal of a keynote? I mean, to me, it's to kick off a conference, or maybe it's a special luncheon. Like, I don't know. I mean, why would a conference have 4? Why does a conference have any?
well, I don't know why they have 4. Because there used to be, you would have a keynote speaker. And again, this is that we're old, right? We've been going to conferences for 30 years, and it used to be that you would have a keynote. You might have an opening speaker, a keynote speaker, and a closing speaker. So,
Yeah,
and the
so keynote was generally like lunch or dinner, right? Like it was usually like the big event. And I think what was really cool is that the keynote was special. It doesn't mean, to me, like, so, and they had different purposes. I mean, I think an opening speaker and a closing speaker kind of have a different feel than a keynote. And as somebody who planned conferences and paid for conferences, keynotes, they cost money. So I think that was kind of why we had the opening speaker and the closing speaker might be different than the keynote or the headliner even, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, and I think part of what people are using the term keynote for now is, hey, these are names you might know, or this is a topic that I really think we need to talk about. So they're not just having one thing that they think people should talk about or one headliner. They're having multiple. And I hate to say this because it makes me and Kate and other speakers sound a little bit vain, but I think sometimes they're calling people keynotes when they are just opening or closing speakers because people like to think that they're the keynote. And so there's some vanity metrics to that. I know that I have said that I'm a keynote, even though I'm not listed as a keynote, because I was the opening or closing speaker. So I know that I am subject to that vanity. So
Okay,
maybe
so
part of it is the response to that vanity of the public speakers, right?
So here's the thing that I guess my question to you really is, what's the purpose? Like, so part of the reason this has come up is that Carrie and I heard what we literally will tell you is probably the best keynote we've heard in the last 18 months. And if anybody who's watched any of our social media, if you started to do the math, I will tell you that that's probably close to 30 conferences. And
Right,
so,
which means it's close to 150 or more keynotes. because of the number of conferences that have 3 or more keynotes, right? So
what we want to know, drop in the chat, and even if you're watching this later, right? Even if it's not right now, drop in the chat what you think the purpose of the keynote is. Because I'm going to try to get Carrie to tell me, because she keeps dodging my question.
It's not.
I want to know what the purpose of the keynote is.
Okay,
from Carrie's perspective.
I'm poking you with the whole chat because this isn't a webinar. In the comments.
Okay, whatever. Down there.
So I think that the purpose of the keynote is to make an emotional connection with the audience. We have the workshop sessions to feed our mind, right? To teach us things about how to do our job, how to help other people with their jobs. Like that's what the workshops are for, is to feed our mind. And to
Okay, I
me,
got an answer when you're ready.
okay, what's your answer?
No, it's the definition.
Oh, and you're making weird sounds over there again. Do you have a fan going or something?
I mean, my computer fan is going, but it always goes.
No, it sounds like something's brushing up against the microphone. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Okay, well, what does the dictionary say it is? Because I think it's about touching the spirit or the soul of the person in the audience.
So, I mean, that was pretty close. So it's setting the tone and maybe the core message or the big idea for the entire event. So theoretically, a keynote speaker sets the overall tone, theme, and energy. They deliver high impact, expert presentation designed to inspire, educate, or motivate the audience.
So I don't think it's that much about educate. I really don't. Especially when our conferences are so much about education.
Well,
The
I mean,
rest of the conference is education.
It was inspire, educate, motivate. So to me,
Yeah,
it's probably,
I would just do
I'm thinking, huh?
1 and 3. I would just do 1 and 3. Skip number 2.
But I think the part that I guess got me compared to some of the ones we've heard in the last 18 months is setting the tone. And I think setting the tone is so on target, whether it's the opening, the lunch, the dinner, the closing, whether it's a keynote, whether it's a main speaker, because I think the energy you bring in a morning session or the energy you bring to wrap up an event, I think is really, really important. I also feel like you got to have you got to really do your homework on the audience. Yep. We've seen so many things labeled as keynotes that are, and I mean this without saying, because I mean, all keynoters on some levels are entertainers, but they're comedians or they're musicians. Like they really are an entertainer. And I get that and I like that. But I feel like they've missed the mark when they've totally missed the audience. And we're paying the money. I mean, our ticket, I mean, if you think about it, right? The ticket you pay to go to a conference is your admission ticket to that entertainer. And if you're not entertained, I want my money back.
Well, I mean, I watched the Hugh Jackman, Neil Diamond movie. And so when you're saying entertainer, that's what's in my head right now, is Hugh Jackman pretending to be Neil Diamond. And so if you have a Neil Diamond impersonator coming in as your keynote, does that connect with the early childhood audience? No, it doesn't.
No, but if the theme, if you had something that was related to the theme, maybe, right? Like if, we're going to a conference next month, Carrie, right? And their theme is kind of airplanes and takeoffs and pilots and stuff like that. So I think if they had an entertainer that was a pilot who was a comedian, who got a little bit at least and really understood the difference between, say, a kindergarten teacher or a teacher and understanding preschool or early education educators, like if they got that differentiation and they weren't trying to lump all educators together, I think that would be enough. But it would be on brand. It would probably be funny, right? It would have some humor. Like we've seen some that were really darn funny. And the ones that are coming at it from the perspective as a parent, I find them funny, and I'm okay with them, even if they're not 100% on brand or something. It's when they go, oh, it's so funny. And they're trying to tell me as a middle school teacher. And I'm like, I'm not a middle school teacher, wrong audience.
Well, and, some of those people that are on like the board teacher tour have experience with at least kindergarten or early ed, and others don't. So I think an educator is an educator, and if they change their routine, their talk, to talk about the similarities and to stay funny, then I think it can work, because an educator is an educator. But if you're telling us stories about when you were, having to deal with sexually inappropriate content in your high school class, then that doesn't really land, because even the out of school time folks aren't dealing with that on a regular basis the way a high school teacher is. It's got to connect. Like, it has to connect. So if it was that high school teacher who was a comedian, and again, I haven't seen a high school teacher comedian. So this is,
but we've had some motivational speakers who were middle school and high school principals.
Right, we have. And so in that situation, if they can tie it to the similarities, like parents who don't respond to reasonable concerns from the school, the difficulty with navigating multicultural environments, or, there are lots of similarities, but you've got to adjust.
That Frappuccino is not breakfast.
Yes. Yes. And some of them do it really well, and some of them don't. But I think if a good keynote should touch the heart and give you something to think about as you move forward. That's what I think a really good keynote is. And that's what Erica Sacosio did really well at the Texas Licensed Childcare Association conference. She had her keynote had an arc. It had some parts where people were just crying. It had parts where people were cheering, and it had a lot of laughter. But people went away with the thoughts of, even when I don't think I can, the kids think I can. And we can achieve a whole lot if we follow the children's, their thought process, their interests. We can do a lot more. We can accomplish a lot more if we believe in ourselves when we can't, and when we can, and when we can't, we let the children believe in us. I mean, I think that was really great. That was kind of what she left us with.
I think it was absolutely wonderful. And she did her research into Texas, and she came from the industry, and she came with humor, and she came on conference message, and like, she just nailed it every way you can. And what I also really appreciated about the conference is the time zone, the time amount. Some of the, like, we've been seeing more and more of keynoters, or people who are being given that title, who are given everywhere from 90 minutes to almost 2 hours. And as somebody who does keynotes, Carrie and I do keynotes, that is not a keynote. That is a workshop and a keynote. Like, that's two things. And respect your audience, respect your keynote, because I mean, I know you're probably doing it because you're like, I want to get the most out of my bang out for my buck, for, for the dollars that you're spending.
If you're paying some number of thousands of dollars, you don't want them there for 32 minutes. You want them there longer than that, because you paid to get them there. I get that. But I think it makes more sense to have them do a keynote and then do 1 or 2 workshops, so that the people who are like impacted immediately after can go into a workshop and dig more deeply. And we had a pretty decent keynote at another conference that did exactly that.
And there's a conference
keynote, and then there was a session right after that she was doing, that was in one of the biggest rooms, expecting people to want to continue that conversation. And I think that's a really smart thing to do.
Yeah, and there's a keynote that we aren't actually going to that conference because we've got another conference that same weekend where the same kind of thing. He's coming in, he's delivering the keynote, and then he's doing the conference really kind of played it up, and he's doing some special VIP ticket session. So he's making it exclusive, right? They're rationalizing the higher price point for that other ticket. So, I mean, if you're a conference planner, you've been on a conference committee, go back, rewind, listen to what we just said. Ask your audience. Sometimes people give you glowing feedback because they don't want to really maybe tell you the truth because it may come across as sexist, racist. Like, if you've heard somebody talk and they didn't connect with you as a participant, make sure you tell people that person didn't connect with me. And then tell them why.
Tell the planners, don't tell the person.
No. Yeah, but like almost every conference gives you an evaluation. One of the presenters at a conference that we've done recently used something that Carrie and I also use, which is called a talk-a-dot. And I will tell you, I'm actually pretty honest in the talk-a-dot. One of the ones I've left in the last 6 months was, hey, I liked your topic, but I didn't like it for this audience. And I thought you were a little dry and too long. This is somebody who does a lot of presentations internationally. And if we don't leave the right review, just like on Google or Yelp or Facebook reviews, you got to be honest and just telling them what you think they want to hear, especially if you get the ability to do it anonymous. The conference planners don't know. And if you are part of an organization and you've noticed a trend, and we're going to go just a tad longer than we normally do on a Sunday, but if you've noticed a trend and maybe it's all the presenters seem to come from the business community or
as if we're not a business, as if we're not all running, $1 million or multi-million-dollar businesses, because we are most programs.
Yes. So, but if they're trying to introduce a new concept and maybe this is where, as a conference planner, do some research into that concept. Just because it's a cool concept, if it's a concept meant for a widget, doesn't mean that widget concept actually translates to early childcare, which is a service business. And that is one trend we've seen a lot of. And just because it's a name or that person is trained by a big name. So, I don't think I've seen anybody, but, and I love myself some Zig Ziglar, but just because somebody is a Zig Ziglar speaker doesn't necessarily mean they're going to bring you Zig Ziglar energy. So, and Carrie, can I go on my one tiny little soapbox? Do you think I can do it?
It's not a tiny soapbox. Kate has done some math and you're going to be shocked, or at least I hope you're shocked. I was shocked. She was trying to find out who all is being hired to be a keynote across the country. And she's tracked it for a number of years. What, 3 years now? 3 or 4 years?
3 years is what I currently have the data. I've been challenged to go back into at least maybe even 2019 if I can find the data.
Yep. So what did you find out about who is being hired and given the thousands of dollars and given the title of a keynote speaker?
So I'm going to ask you this question first, Carrie. When you have done your research with the Department of Labor, what is the percentage of women and men in early childcare?
So in the industry as a whole, it is 98% female, 2% male or other. And in leadership in early childhood, it is 93% women and 7% male or other.
Okay. So as one of the things we hear all the time in any component of education is that whoever you're teaching wants to see themselves. So I find it interesting based on those numbers, Carrie, because since 2003, 98% of the keynotes across every state and national association, which is on an average 3 conferences per state. So if you look at their Head Start conferences, their family conferences, their licensed childcare homes, their childcare programs, their AEYCs, if you take the average, so there's roughly, I have about 150 organizations in my database, which includes all of the national organizations and state affiliates, regional affiliates, 98% of the keynotes since 2023 have been men.
So that 3% of our industry or 7% of leadership is doing a lot of work.
But yeah, what I haven't actually tracked, I mean, could give you anecdotal, but I don't actually have the percentages, is the number of keynotes that have actually come from the industry. We have very few of those male keynotes. I'm going to tell you, it's probably less than 5 people total. So there are less than 5 of those men that are doing those keynotes that actually come from early childhood as a whole.
So working in early education, there are some that are from out of school time, and
Well, there's some that are coming from school age.
yeah,
They're not even out of school time. They just happen to be school age. So
yeah.
they're still
So
principals or teachers in elementary, middle, and high schools.
right, and then a couple who work adjacent. So whether they're therapists or something like that, we've got some of those, or providers of out of school time activities. And so it is a thing that we're concerned about, because the other thing we're really noticing is that almost all of them are in their 50s or older. And that wasn't the case when we were coming up in the industry. There were
No,
keynotes in their 30s and 40s. And so it's skewing older and it's skewing more male, which means we are leaving out the people who are actually doing the work. We are leaving out the people who are, directors,
the people coming to the conference.
and the teachers. Yeah.
I mean, at the conference that we've been at, I would say it is not that there aren't men. I'm not saying there aren't men. I'm not saying that there aren't people in their 50s, because we're there. But I am going to absolutely agree with you on that statement that the majority of the people that are showing up to the conferences that we're attending are between the ages of probably 22 and 40. And if I was sitting in those audiences, I would be like, I don't see me. And if I went to every conference, and I'm in the industry and I'm going to conferences, I don't care if I'm paying or I'm going for free because my state paid for me to go, that state still is disconnected. And you know what? Just because somebody has a strong social media presence, just because somebody might be classified as an influencer, doesn't mean they're going to be an entertainer for me at a conference I came to get inspired, maybe to become unoverwhelmed, to become, maybe I'm on a borderline burnout. And, I want something that's going to kick me a little bit in the butt, maybe, and get me excited to do my job.
Yep. And it can be a new concept that you leave with thinking about, but it shouldn't be the nuts and bolts of that new concept. It should be the broad outlines so that they can go, oh, that was a really interesting thought. The first time anybody at a conference talked to me about the 3 zones of the brain was at a keynote, and it was a closing keynote. And so it was the last thing I thought about as I was leaving, about the prefrontal cortex and the midbrain and the reptilian brain. And I thought about that for days and days and days. And, obviously years, because it's years later and I'm still thinking about it. And it changed the way I functioned as an educator, which you can do in a keynote much, in a much different way than in a workshop. So let us know what you want in a keynote. Maybe Kate and I are completely wrong, and that's not what people want from a keynote anymore. Let us know, because we want to make sure that we're amplifying your voice as we are talking to the organizers of conferences, because they ask us as presenters and as vendors, what did you like about the conference and what did you not like? And up to this point, we've just been giving our feedback, and I'd kind of like to give yours, because that's more important. Your feedback is much more important than my feedback when it comes to the conference organizers, because there's a lot more of you. There's a lot more directors and owners than there are people who write courses for directors and owners. So I'd like your voice to be being amplified up to those conference organizers. What makes a great conference? What makes you want to go to a conference instead of getting your training through Zoom or through an online course? Why would you leave your house, put on, as they say, hard pants, and drive to go to a conference? What are those things?
And maybe even spend a little money. And we
Yeah.
know that our states are spending money because they want that quality training. We know that people, fly, drive, they put themselves up in hotel rooms, they're eating. It could be entirely about networking and connections, because we get that. We absolutely love that, and we feel like that is
That's a
incredibly
big part of
important.
why we go.
It is, it is. And so give us your feedback. And you know what? We know we have a lot of conference organizers that actually watch and follow our channel, both our podcast channel and Texas Director. So, feel free to be honest there, because guess what? Those people are watching our channels and you can just talk to them directly.
Yep. So we will talk to you next week. And I hope you are subscribed to our podcast so you can hear some more of this crazy stuff and give us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in. We love bringing you real talk and fresh insight from the world of early childhood education. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay connected and catch all of the latest episodes. And if you're planning a conference, training, or special event, Kate and Carrie would love to speak to your audience. You can learn more about their keynote sessions and workshops at kateandcarrie.com. If you learned something today, share the show and leave us a review below. We'll see you next time on Childcare Conversations.